My name is Norm Bussey. I am currently unemployed, almost 50. I live in Park Ridge. So, this story is basically about how I contacted my biological family. Yeah, I don't remember not knowing when I was adopted. You know, I remember that as long as as far back as I can remember. Um, my parents were divorced when I was 3, so I moved back and forth between them quite a bit between Florida and Park Ridge, Illinois. So, you know, I it was how I grew up. It seemed normal to me. My mom is more of a caregiver kind of a person. She was, I'm very close to her. And my dad is more of a all business kind of a guy. He passed away a couple years ago, but they're very different, and probably why they didn't stay married. Being adopted it's not a big part of your life, but it is a little bit liberating to know that you're not necessarily going to turn out like your parents. That is a nice thing, especially if there's some things that you see in your parents that are flaws. You think, well, that shouldn't happen to me. As I was growing up, I didn't feel like I didn't fit in. Only my father's father occasionally made me feel a little bit like an outsider, but that was it, and it was easy to brush off. And the circumstances that I was told have changed since I was a child till now. My mother and my father both had conflicting stories that would kind of change, and I figured it was just because they were trying to either protect me or protect our relationship. It wasn't that important to me to know the truth, but yeah, it changed quite a bit. And what I had originally thought was that my biological parents were older and couldn't take care of a baby, so that was the original circumstances that I was told. I was never really curious about my biological parents or family. I was curious about my nationality or that background, which is why I did the ancestry thing initially. And it was kind of an off chance of maybe running into somebody that I was related to it also. But I was mostly just concerned with, am I, English or whatever.
What do I remember him about taking it? I remember he took it because at the time it was kind of like the hip thing to do was the shiny new toy and being adopted and all. He's like, you never know. He's like, I'm going to do this. And I was kind of like, okay. And he did.
I just remember when he took it, and he just took it because he wanted to find out like what his ethnicity was. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. I was like, this is cool because I was like, whatever he is, I'm a little bit of, and I was like, this is gonna be cool.
So my DNA makeup or whatever came back, and it was mostly Norwegian and Irish and Scottish, which is what I suspected, and I was really hoping for something a little more interesting.
I just remember like he was honestly kind of disappointed because he was hoping for something more interesting, like in his ethnicity. And he was just like English and like Norwegian and like French, like 2% French. And he was like, that's so boring. And I was like, yeah, it is kind of boring, but it's okay.
I took the DNA test from Ancestry about 3 years ago. And there is an option on there where you can pick whether or not you want to be linked up with people who are related to you, which I didn't even realize was an option. So I said yeah, and then years went by and I didn't meet anybody that was a close relative really. So I had officially given up by the time I was received the email.
I remember when he was calling his sister in the kitchen, and I came downstairs from a shower. And I was like, oh, who's dad talking to? And my mom goes, oh, his sister. And I was like, huh? I was like, dad does not have a sister. And then, because I obviously knew nothing about this. And then my mom was like, yeah, they like just matched on ancestry.com. And then everything like happened so fast because his sister's The first sister that he connected with was Stacy. And when Stacy was talking about everything, I was like, this is actually crazy. Like, I could not believe it. For the first few weeks that it happened, like everything felt so surreal. And I was like, there's literally no way that my dad has had an entire family and we just have been missing out on it for 50 years, or him at least. I heard everything from Stacy, and then he told me about the entire ancestry thing and how he matched with Stacy once Stacy did it at Christmas with her family. And on his side it said sister, like for possible relation, and he was like he was just like so shocked, and so was I.
Well, obviously my wife and kids are also related to all these people too. Well, not my wife, but that would be weird. But yeah, so their lives are going to change now too. They have a much larger extended family than they were aware of. So everybody's lives are changing. It's not necessarily a dramatic change or a bad change by any means. It's definitely a good thing, I think.
Everybody was so excited. Like, everybody was just really happy to meet him because they were like, oh, a new member of the family, like, and a new blood member of the family. It was really exciting for everyone. And I never felt overwhelmed. Like, nobody ever felt overwhelmed, I don't think. Everyone was just always like super excited. Because, they were like, I have a little brother. Like, this is insane. And my dad was like, I have big sisters. And yeah, everyone was really happy because obviously, like, it's not like my dad doesn't get along with people. So they were having so much fun, like, every time they hang out.
It's been pretty cool. I come from a very small family. I have one brother. Norman has Norman's lived his whole life with, no siblings. I mean, he has stepbrothers, but no direct brothers and sisters. So when this all came to be, it was very cool. It was very, it was never overwhelming. It's always been very exciting. Norman's family now, it's a very big family, but we've kind of, taken our time kind of meeting them, kind of taking baby steps and all this. But at this point, I think we've pretty much met everybody. So it's pretty cool. We have a lot of fun with them. Because one situation could be where we meet these people and they're kind of boring and lame, but in our case, they're not. They're super duper fun, and we have a lot of fun together. And we don't talk about the adoption anymore. I mean, it's kind of like we went through our phase of asking questions and this and that, and now that's over. Now we just kind of hang out and talk about life and, normal friend kind of things.
I love them. Like, I feel like I've known them for my whole life. And, like, we hang out with them so often, and they're just, like, so similar to my dad. And, like, I love hanging out with my dad. And they're just, like, his sisters are literally just female versions of my dad. And, like, all their kids and like, their husbands and wives, like, it's just, I don't know. Like, we all just have, like, the same humor. And it's, like, I feel like it makes sense. Like, all of us, like, us as a family just makes sense because we all are the same. And we all just always have so much fun together.
I spend a lot of time with my sister now, and my sister that lives in the city, and her husband. We get along with them really well. My wife and my family get along with her and her kids and her kids' spouses. And then my other sister lives in Aurora, which is kind of far. So I've only seen her twice. But I get along with her really well too, and her husband. And I have not met her daughter yet. I have met her daughter's wife, and I still haven't met my biological father yet in person. That's it. A little bit of a long story about how I was put up for adoption. My biological mother was 16 when she was married, and my biological father was 23. And they had 3 children before me. And from what I know, my biological father was kind of a handful for my biological mother. who was, obviously really young also. She was pregnant with me. She told my biological father that she had had an affair and the baby was not me. And so that was sort of her out to get a divorce. But she knew she couldn't take care of a baby, so she put me up for adoption. My sisters and my brother, I have 2 sisters and a brother, they were all aware of my existence. But, they never reached out to find me. I don't even know if they could have if they wanted to, but they never did because they figured that they didn't know the circumstances of my life. So they figured that, whatever was going on with my life was better left alone. Since now I have thought about what it would be like if I was not adopted, and if I had stayed with that family. I think it would have been a lot different given the fact that my older brother was into drugs and an alcoholic, and I probably would have followed suit. But other than that, I don't doubt that the family would have loved me and things like that. But I'm definitely, who wants to change their life if everything's turned out well? So finding out all this information, it does change, how I look at myself. I've grown up as an only child, even though I had stepbrothers. They were usually a lot older than me, and when I met them, they were already out of the house. But to have actual siblings is a lot to take in, and I still don't know if I've completely grasped it.
Have I noticed any changes in Norman? I would say the one change that I have noticed is I've always been the person to like make plans and get together with people. And now he kind of steps up to the plate a little bit, and he'll come to me and say, "Hey, we're getting together with Peter and Stacy this weekend, or we're going to go do brunch or something." And I'm like, "Okay, you're making plans. Cool." So that part's been cute.
No, my everyday life is not that different. The biggest difference now is I'm part of a very large family. I'm trying to, we spend Easter together and things like that. So, there's a lot of people. My 2 sisters have 4 kids between them, and they even have kids themselves. So there's quite a bit of people. My brother had children. His daughter has children. So there's a lot of people.
Everything has been so positive. Like, I've seen my dad, he's like so much happier, I feel like. And who wouldn't? He found his sisters. And it's just crazy to think about right now, because like thinking back at it, you would think that it's literally impossible to find your biological siblings. And after 50 years, you would think that it's not going to happen. And it did. So that's it's just really crazy. And the whole thing is really positive. And I'm really glad that it happened.
I don't regret taking the test. It was definitely a good idea. Definitely eye-opening, and I'm really appreciative of all the people that I've met. If I had the opportunity to speak to myself when I was younger, I don't know if I would say anything. There wasn't a lot that I could have done. I did the ancestry test about 3 years ago, and my sister's family just did it for Christmas. So, as far as that goes, there's really nothing I could have done to speed things up or anything like that. My biological mother died about 12 years ago, and my brother died 13 years ago, I think, or maybe 12 and a half or something like that. So I think it's important for adopted kids to know that they're adopted early on, so that it's not a big shock later on, because you don't know the circumstances that they're going to find out, and by then it could be really out of control. As far as advice for anybody else, I just think being honest about everything that happens is key.